West Ham have been doing some fantastic transfer business so far in this window, but we're not done yet. And it looks like we're going to be pushing for Carlos Soler of Paris Saint-Germain. Spanish, 27 years old. If you're not familiar with him, here's a little bit of an overview of his profile. So, as I mentioned there, he's 27, 5'11", right-footed. Contract expires in 2027 with an estimated value of 20 million euros on Transfermarkt. And you can see here his main positions are centrally. Best position is that eight slash 10, not well, advanced eight position. But he has been has actually been thrown in at right back, right mid. I think he's played like 90 games at right mid in his career. But his best position is no doubt that kind of central midfield position stuff. So before we get into the breakdown, if you do enjoy it, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel. But yeah, Carlos Soler, it looks like this could be the final bit of business, or maybe one more after this. But it looks like Lopetegui wants another midfielder in there, and it could be that Thomas Souček departs for this to be sanctioned. Overall thoughts on Carlos Soler before we get into the breakdown?
I think he's a very talented player. He's a victim of the sort of PSG machine where they just seem to go out and sign the in-form player of the season or in a lot of the European leagues. And he was that, but he never really got a fair crack of the whip. So I think he's a very talented player. And if we were to get the Carlos Soler from Valencia, we would be absolutely laughing. I think, especially for even say the loan to buy or 20 million euros that's been touted, I think he's an excellent player. And even if we were to get the sort of output that he's had at PSG, where he's not been used that much, I think we would still be in a very good place. It's just one of those things where it would almost require you to play not double pivot, but you'd have to sit Alvarez really deep. And I know he's quite happy doing that, but it's you've still potentially got a month until he comes back. So you're going to sit Guido back there and kind of hope that he gets up to the pace instantly.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting because he's only been at two clubs in his career. Like you say, he came through at Valencia, spent a long time there, played over 226 times for their first team. And as you say, before that move to PSG, he was producing some fantastic numbers, 11 goals back to back in both seasons in the Liga for Valencia before he left. I think he got 5 assists, 8 assists in each of those seasons as well. So he was someone that not just, like you say, creates and is good on the ball, which we're going to get onto in a second, but he had that final third product to his game, which I think often gets criticized from some of the players we've seen, likes of Fornals, the likes of even Paqueta has been highlighted as a criticism of his, that he isn't clinical enough or isn't producing enough in the final third in terms of goal and assist output. But I think Soler produced in those couple of seasons before he moved to PSG that he absolutely has that in his locker. As you say, it didn't really work out at PSG right now. He's been there for a while now. He's been there for a couple of seasons, but yeah, as you say, it just hasn't worked out for him. Probably surplus to requirements because they signed the talent of the season, as you mentioned, as their recruitment model. And, he just hasn't fitted into the way they want to play. But let's break down the data and focus on what Soler would bring to West Ham in a positive light. What would you say his key attributes are? Because looking at the data from last season, comparing him with other midfielders in the top 5 European leagues, again, his data is slightly skewed because he was averaging 40 minutes a match in the league, just as an example. So he wasn't particularly playing 90 minutes often. But what can this data tell us and inform us about Carlos Soler as a player?
Well, I think that when you look at his overall ability, one of the key things to mention is that he is an excellent sort of playmaker, really. But it's not just that he is your cliche playmaker where he's kind of a bit scared of the physical side of the game. He's more than happy to get stuck in. He's not necessarily going to win you aerial duels and compete physically, but he'll get stuck in. And he is someone who is excellent technically in terms of his first touch is great, but also his passing range and his ability to retain possession for the side. I think that's one of the things that is why you see the numbers you see with him. It's the fact that he is able to move it so well, whether it's out to the wide men and in that sort of right hand side pocket that he tends to position himself in, or whether it's retaining the possession in the middle of the park. He's so strong in terms of finding that pass, finding space as well.
Yeah, I think for me as well, you're you got to look at who he's going to be replacing in that midfield. It's likely to be someone like Thomas Souček. So as you say, if it's Guido Rodriguez or Alvarez with Paqueta alongside him as kind of deeper player, you then have Soler on the other side, who, as you mentioned, fits the profile of what Lopetegui wants to do with the technical aspect of his players. So that's probably Soler's best traits, is his technical ability. Obviously, coming through an academy in Spain is going to give you that regardless. But yeah, he's obviously very technically sound. It's a player that Lopetegui likes. He's still only 27 years old, hasn't really had too many injury problems throughout his career thus far. Touch wood, that doesn't happen if he joins West Ham. But my main concern with the midfield targets, other than a couple, is the lack of ball carrying transition threats or someone that can drive forwards with the ball. Because Paqueta, I've said before, his best position is that deep eight position where he can find passes and collect the ball and make things tick. You don't have Alvarez or Guido Rodriguez, who are not the most mobile. And as you say, they're kind of the anchor to the midfield. That then leaves you with that other position, which is you want someone to be that eight who's good technically and can, find those passes and, make things happen from a technical perspective. But for me, we just lack that driver in midfield. We lack that figure who can bring the ball forwards. And, we even saw it against Aston Villa in our first game. How many times did Onana just blitz past our midfield driving with the ball? How many times did we see Rodgers come in and collect and drive with the ball? Other than Kudus and Bowen, we don't really have too many drivers. So is there any concern there that we're maybe going towards too much of a controlled side, but we're kind of still lacking that transition threat with ball carrying midfielders? This video is sponsored by Emotiv. Emotiv provide cutting-edge digital services, solutions, and training to companies and businesses of all sizes. Emotiv have worked with some fantastic brands in the past, as you can see behind me, the likes of Apple, Google, Tesco, and of course, Babylon Irons. Emotiv offer 4 key services, the first being digital solutions, the second being professional training and coaching, the third being fractional experts, and the fourth being AI readiness. We're going to be working with Emotiv on our channel to improve how we showcase the data to you guys in our breakdown videos and data analysis videos. If you want to find out more information about how Emotiv can work with you, make sure to scan the QR code now, which will take you to emotivtouch.com, where you can find out more details about the company, and the link will be in the description. A massive thank you to Emotiv once again for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to it.
Definitely. I think Soler's a very good player, and if we were to get him on a loan to buy, I think that'd be a great bit of business. But I do also think that maybe we should be looking at bringing in that exact kind of player that you mentioned, someone who is going to drive the possession forward. And when you look at the likes of Manu Kone, who are available around, 15, 20 million euro mark, for me, I'd be getting them sorted before I look at Soler. I think he's a very talented player, but not necessarily the driver that we need. And look, I'm not going to pretend I know anywhere near as much as Lopetegui, but I think that unless we have a plan going in the background, it's the worrying element of that midfield for me is the lack of someone who's going to break up the play, but push us forward up the pitch. And we know that Paqueta can do that. He likes to get stuck in, and he does do the nitty gritty, but he's not as mobile. And as you mentioned, he's not as able to carry the ball or drive past players. So I think it'd be a big hindrance if we didn't pick up someone who can do that.
Yeah, I think it's, certain games where we're looking to control and dominate that midfield. A midfield of Alvarez, Paqueta, and Soler would be a really nice blend. I think the technical aspect, along with the industrious side of Paqueta and say an Alvarez or Guido, is there. It lacks pace. So then you're kind of asking whoever's going to play Somerville, Kudus, Bowen on those wide areas, and then either Fulkrug or Antonio to provide that in the final third. I think against, when you're playing a Lopetegui system where you want to be a little bit more possession based, you want to control areas of the pitch pushed up into the final third. I would say if you're playing a lesser team or a team where we're expected to win quite significantly, that midfield 3 would probably work quite well because you'd have a lot of control in midfield and you'd be able to pin them back very nicely. It's just in games where we need that breakaway figure, or we need someone to carry the ball, we just place so much emphasis on someone like Kudus or Bowen to do that. And I just don't want us to rely on our wide players to be that person. I mean, look at Kovacic. Kovacic is a perfect example of someone that can drive with the ball. He's obviously got limitations to playing as a lone six, or, gets a little bit isolated if you're asking him to just defend. But on the ball, he's fantastic. And I just don't think we've had someone that can drive with the ball like that in midfield for a while. It's why I've said about Kudus playing centrally, but that's a topic for another day. But Soler, 20 million euros is estimated value. So we could be looking, maybe, I think, unless we sell Souček, it probably would be a loan with an option to buy. If we do sell Souček and replace him with Soler for, let's say, 20 million euros, what would you rate that transfer out of 10?
I think he's a very talented player. And I think if you're looking at bringing him into the sort of PSG style of either starting him and taking him off quite early and letting someone like a Ward-Prowse take up that role, then it could be quite good. But I just worry that, as we both said, we need an engine in that midfield and someone who's going to carry it. And I think it would be money misspent, in my opinion. I would rather go for someone like a Kone and really kind of look to tackle teams. And we've seen it work. You could argue that when Liverpool went away to Ipswich, against these lower teams, you don't necessarily have to have that. But I think that it's something we have cried out for in games. As you mentioned, against Villa, we were really exposed. So I'd probably give it a 6, because I think that there is a heck of a player there if you can get him finding the form that he did at Valencia. But I just worry that he's not quite what we need.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that. 6.5 out of 10. I think the value for money is a really good signing. It's just, when you look at what we need at the football club right now, do I think it's the best profile to play in that number 8 position? No. But I do think it is an upgrade technically on someone like Thomas Souček, and I think it would offer us a little bit of a different dimension to how we can play and control matches, to how Lopetegui wants to do. So it could work out. I think it would be a good signing. It's just, I think there's better options out there, as you say, to kind of profile in that midfield. But we'll see what happens. Still a little bit left of the window, around 10, 11 days now. So yeah, we'll have to see what happens with this one and whether Lopetegui pushes ahead with it, if we can sell players to raise the funds for it, all of that jazz. But let us know what you thought down below in the comments of the breakdown. What do you think of Carlos Soler? Would you be looking to try and sign him for West Ham this summer? Do you think he's the profile we need? Let us know. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel for more content. And Sloth, until the next one.
Come on, you
Come on,
Irons.
you Irons.